And this is called a circumstantial case. So this is what UFOs and belief in UFOs is all about, putting a good circumstantial case together. Enough pieces of the jigsaw to create a highly compelling view that these things are real. Okay. So there's my basic definition, basically. Enough pieces of the jigsaw, we can create a compelling view. Conclusions. I, having reviewed all the best books, the best videos, the best evidence that I can see from these high caliber witnesses, here's my conclusion. Absolutely 100% nailed colours to the mast. Some UFO sightings are real, nuts and bolts, extraterrestrial vehicles. As a detective. Okay. I've already talked about the frustration. Okay. Launched in January. Started off with half a dozen cases. Okay. Half a dozen cases, and literally I now have, 8 years later, guess how many? Nearly 400, involving almost 800 British police officers. Started with 10, I've now got nearly 800. And I'm pretty certain, because the MOD released some files last week, that if I go through those, I'll find some more cases, so it'll take it over that magic 800 figure. So literally, year by year, basically 40 cases a year, 100 officers each per year. Now that's just in England. Think of how many there would be in America if there were a similar organisation, and the size of this country. I suspect there would be many, many thousands. Cases for on duty, off duty. Okay, this is in January 2002. I'd come up with this idea. Now our force had its own intranet for hobbies. Cycling, jogging, martial arts, UFOs. I put it on there, and of course I got what I expected. This is what I got. Beam me up, Scotty. My inspector's an alien. Work. Nanu, nanu, I wonder where that's come from. And take me to your leader, you just have to have that one. That was the initial response I had from my colleagues. They thought I was crazy. Okay? But funnily enough, I expected that. Because I don't know if there are any police officers in this room, but police officers have a sort of a weird kind of sense of humour. And we're always messing about with each other and having this, what we would call in England, a banter. Okay? So, I expected that. A week later, guess what? You get somebody who's an ex-air traffic in my force, sends me a little email. I've seen something. Can I have a little chat? So it did work. Okay? I expected the hilarity, but beyond that, the real story started to come forward. Okay. As we're going to go into the cases very shortly, the majority of the cases that I'll go through, it's a highlight. I can't show you nearly 400 cases. We'll be here all day, much as I'd like to bore you to death. But right, so the majority will be on-duty cases. There will be 3 off-duty cases, and it says cases, there were 3, but I'm going to talk about one case that I consider got away from me. Oh, it was frustrating. I've talked about that I'm a 100% believer. I have to mention this now because we have to, after 60 years of basic research on this subject, there are some pretty basic things that we can establish from research. The most common shapes that are seen, the disc, the spheres, the cigar, the triangle. There are many others, weird and wonderful, but they're the most common. So when we now start looking at police cases that I'm going to go through, keep those in the back of your mind, and let's see how often they're repeated. Okay? After 60 years, there are genuine flight characteristics with genuine UFOs. When I say genuine UFOs, I mean ET. The ability to stop and hover in complete silence. The ability to make right-angle turns. The ability to make instant acceleration, instant deceleration. The ability to make vertical ascent and descent. These kind of things. And when people go, no, it's only stealth, it isn't stealth. We can't do it now. We couldn't do it then when we go and review these cases from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. These aircraft that are normally 15 years ahead would have been out by now. They aren't. We still can't do it. And there is one more that maybe I should have put on that list, but it will become self-evident what that is. Okay, here we go. Let's start looking at these cases. This is why you come. You want to hear about cases. Okay. First one, 1901. It's an old newspaper clipping. Can I prove it? No. Was it UFO, ET? Who knows? But let's look at these characteristics. Two officers walking the beat in the winter, as you do. They suddenly become aware of a green glow around them. They look up. They see what they describe as a cigar-shaped object which tapers at each end. 1901. There is no noise. Green glow, seen at an altitude of 150 feet. 150 feet is probably 10 times the height of this ceiling. But it's pretty close, isn't it? I'm pretty certain if I went outside and looked up at the top of this building that I'd know that that's pretty close. So who knows if they were distorting the truth? We don't know. But it's a very interesting account, and it's on there because all the characteristics that we attribute to the modern UFO era from 1947 onwards, with Kenneth Arnold sighting, we look at this. We have a cigar-shaped object, green glow. Remember green glow, it might come up again. Close proximity, low altitude, no noise. It would pretty much fit my classic criteria. Okay, let's move it on. As I said, 1947, the modern era begins. But in the UK, I can't find any police sightings. My first one, prior to this 57 report, is 1950. In America, I know there were police reports from 47 straight away. Okay, so if anybody did a similar study like I do in Britain, they would find cases from 47. This is interesting because it's a USO report. I presume a lot of people in the room will know what that means. Well, basically, it's an underwater object that can either be seen going into the sea or coming out of the sea and then flying off. On this occasion, 23:45 hours, 3 uniformed police officers see a red disc emerging from the Bristol Channel, from the sea, for want of a better word, and up into the sky. I don't know of many stealth aircraft that can do that. 1957. Okay, this is a case that I've been directly involved with, not at the time, but I have been in contact with this officer. This is the guy, Constable Colin Perks. Sadly, he died about 2 years ago. Okay, there's a 20-page file on this guy in the Ministry of Defence's records. What was good about this is, even though he was on his own, he was a really highly respected guy. Nobody could knock him. And what he's doing is he's rattling doors, as you do, checking to see if properties are locked. They are. Then suddenly he becomes aware of a green glow. I'm not saying all UFOs are green. Okay? He looks around. He then sees across the car park an object. That object, to all intents and purposes, a classic saucer, 30 feet wide, hovering just above the car park, a few feet off the ground, making a slightly high-pitched whine. Most UFOs, no noise. On this one, bit of a whine. He watches it for 5 minutes in awe and then accelerates away and gone. The interesting thing was, through somebody who contacted me that put me in contact with him, they were one of the officers that were there when he came in to report this sighting to his colleagues. And he was like seeing a ghost. He was white as a ghost. And he remembers him coming in to this day. All right? And the interesting thing was, he was on the night shift. He was going off at 6 a.m. in the morning. And then officers were replacing him. They went out and they found where the object had been across the entire car park where it was seen, like a 2-inch layer of fine glass-like powder.